Hey folks, I'm back with a follow-up to the last very well responded video that I made, where I talked about Paul singing the song Help in concert now on his 2025 tour. And I thank everybody out there. Everybody was giving a lot of great thoughts and opinions. That's what it's all about. We can talk, we can exchange ideas and opinions. And I want to say it, of all the videos I've made in 13 years, I think I made something like at least maybe around 2,500 videos. I don't ever remember a take that I had that ever got such resistance. So a lot of you really had issue with my last video. Let me tell you the reason for this. A lot of people in their response to me, to my video, brought up the same points over and over and over again. So I decided to list those points and address them because it was very difficult. I had to go in individually, one by one, and basically type in the same feelings I had and same responses over and over again. I'm going to cover those things here, things that you people have said to me in response to me thinking that Paul shouldn't be doing the Beatles song Help or whatever. Okay, here we go. All right. And the first thing that people say is you have to understand that Paul misses his dear friend John, and he's paying tribute to John. Paul does the song Here Today in concerts a lot, where he pays homage to his dear friend, and he loves him so much he comes near the point of tears sometimes. I know that John and Paul loved each other, and I know that Paul really respected and loved John in a lot of ways. Paul is John Lennon's biggest fan in many ways. I get that. I want you to know I get a lot of this. Also, the Peter Jackson bit that he was able to incorporate for Paul into Paul's shows with I've Got a Feeling, when Paul's singing I've Got a Feeling and he's joined on screen by John singing his bits. That's all well and good. I think that people don't understand a few things about me. The first thing, I should have made all of this very clear in the first video. I should have mentioned all this stuff in anticipation of what people were going to say. First off, I am a Paul McCartney fan and I am a Beatles fan. I'm not seeing Paul on this go round, but if he happens to come around my neck of the woods close enough to me in 2026, I will be there. And when he sings the song Help as an opener, I will get very excited. So excited I may wet myself. I mean, not really, but I'm saying I am a fanboy. I to hear ex-Beatle Paul doing a Beatles song, Help, 60 years anniversary after it was first released, it's a thrill as a fan. I'm not taking any of that away, but to me, that's surface level. A lot of you out there were pretty much keeping it surface level. Look, I don't care. Paul was a Beatle. Paul's doing a Beatles song, Help. Who cares? I'm happy. I'm thrilled. The end. Yeah. Well, that's surface level. That's not going deeper, okay? Let me go into a little more here because it's very important to me. First thing that kept coming up over and over again is people were trying to catch me in a double standard, they thought, I got a little hair here. I got a hair. All right. They were trying to catch me in a double standard, so they thought. They say, well, what about John Lennon? In 1974, John Lennon joined Elton John on stage, and he sang Paul's song, I Saw Her Standing There. How about that? Is that okay? Why is that okay? And I had to tell, it seems like 100 people over and over again. To me, there's a lot of different factors in this comparison. First of all, John sings with Paul on I Saw Her Standing There on the 1963 original recording of I Saw Her Standing There. Paul's got the lead vocal. John joins him pretty much constantly through the song. That's one thing. But that's not the most important thing. It'll go on more as the examples as I talk about it. Secondly, back in 1974, when John joined Elton on stage, it was a rare thrill of a lifetime back then for any solo Beatle to do any Beatles song. When did you hear a lot of Beatles songs being performed in 1974? Never, right? Very rare. You had George Harrison doing John's In My Life, when he was on tour. How did I feel about that? Well, I was more concerned with the fact that he changed the lyrics to "In my life, I love God more," you know. But it was different. In 1974, all four Beatles were alive. All four Beatles were recording. They didn't go on stage and do each other's songs all the time. And I should mention that I don't have a problem. People think I have a problem in general with just the idea that one Beatle should sing another Beatles lead vocal song. It's not cool. It's never be done. I'm not here to say that no ex-Beatle should ever sing any other Beatles song. That's not what I'm here to say. I'll continue with that in a minute, but let's stick with Elton John and John Lennon in 1974 when John did I Saw Her Standing There. Okay, all four Beatles were alive at the time. It wasn't just Paul or one of the other Beatles going out on stage basically to be the brand and face of the Beatles. I am now the Beatle brand. It is now me, Paul McCartney. I am the face of the Beatles, and I sing all these songs, Beatles songs. It wasn't like that back in 1974. And the most important thing about the Elton John Lennon song thing, which is totally unique in this case to it, is that he did it. I'd like to sing a song from an old estranged fiance of mine called Paul. He actually introduced the song as being Paul. Okay, so right there he's giving him the credit. So I see it as a very different matter, the Elton John thing. Now, right now we're talking about when Paul sings a John song like Help, is it just a tribute? Or is Paul claiming the song, I don't know. Do you know? I think sometimes Paul's just paying homage to his dear departed friend and showing the love. Other times, yes, I think Paul has demonstrated that he's rather petty when it comes to his songs and who wrote what. And that is clear based on his history. Do you know, back when Paul first did the mostly John song, you got to be careful here, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, Paul in interviews clearly said one of the reasons that he was doing Mr. Kite in concert now was because, quote, I wanted to reclaim it as partially mine, unquote, because Paul actually wrote some of it. Now you may say, well, there's nothing wrong with that. If Paul wrote half of it, so why can't he sing it? It's not a legal problem. Legally, it's fine. I have no problem with that. The thing is, it makes it clear by that quote itself that Paul was obsessed and petty with wanting everybody to know that he wrote some of that song. That's partially my song. That's why I'm singing it. That's what he said. So how am I to say that that's not why he's singing Help? How do you know for sure that him singing Help is not somewhat of a co-ownership thing? Because Paul did write some of that song with John, Help. But the thing is, and this is important too, there's an interview that exists with George Harrison where he says about this topic, I don't get into that thing. I don't get into that game. He says, I don't go around talking about how I wrote, quote from George, a couple of lines off Eleanor Rigby, so George added a lot to the Beatles songs and wrote a lot in there. How would you feel, and how would Paul McCartney feel, if George Harrison was alive and he had gone on stage and decided he wanted to sing Eleanor Rigby as the opening track of his show with the strings and everything? And then in interviews, you have George Harrison saying, just like Paul did, he says, I wanted to reclaim this song as partly mine, and be very petty. Come on, let's be honest about it. I don't think you'd like that. And I tell you what, I don't think Paul McCartney would like that. I'd bet you anything that Paul would be very taken aback. I think Paul would be very upset if George started doing Eleanor Rigby. If John was alive and he sang Michelle, because John wrote the middle eight of Michelle, and he started doing Michelle and not giving Paul any acknowledgement for it as he was singing it, I really wonder if Paul would be back there kind of upset about it. I think he would. Why do I think he would? Because he's shown that. He wanted to make the songs, most of them McCartney, Lennon, the songs, certain songs anyway, if not all the songs, and the songs that Paul had a major hand in, mostly up front, he wanted to change the credits to McCartney, Lennon. So we have experience with Paul, evidence, if you will, uh, that Paul actually wanted things to reflect what he did, and he's very, very concerned about his legacy. That people know he wrote this and he wrote that part. He's gone on and claiming a lot of things in my life, which is basically associated with John. Strawberry Fields, which is basically associated with John. It's not that it's untrue that Paul had a hand in some of these songs. The thing is that it means so much to him to make sure that everybody knows it and that it's important. Uh, Paul has demonstrated this. That's why when he opens up his concert in 2025 with John's help, with John's lyrics and everything, it's fun as a fanboy. As a fan, I love it. But when you get below the surface, is it right? Most fans don't care. Most fans don't care. They just want to hear the song, and I get that. You know, Another thing that people have brought up to me is that, hey, Paul could sing whatever he wants. He's in his 80s. He's free to do whatever he wants. Well, I'm not challenging that either. Naturally, Paul is free to do whatever he wants. It's not illegal. It's not a criminal offense. But I, as a fan, have a right to say, yeah, I don't know about this. I don't know if that's cool. I have a right, too, to give my opinion of what Paul wants to do. Don't I? Don't you? All right? So there's that. I want to make this part clear, too. People keep talking about the fact that these songs, like Help, are all Lennon and McCartney songs. They're credited to Lennon and McCartney. Therefore, because it's Lennon and McCartney, Paul could sing them. Again, you're approaching this from a legal standpoint. I'm not saying that it's illegal for Paul to do the song. It's legal. It's not, it's not a crime. I'm just saying, is it morally right in some of these cases? Think about it, really. There's some songs out there that even though they both had a hand in writing it as Lennon and McCartney, there are some songs that we just associate. I mean, there are what we call Paul songs, like Yesterday. There are songs like Michelle. John wrote the middle eight, but it's basically accepted as a Paul song. Even in John's Playboy interview of 1980, he would say, that's Paul, that's Paul, that's me, that's Paul. And he might say, that's Paul, although I might have had a little something to do with it, but it's Paul. That's what I mean, We have songs like that. Do we want to see Paul going up, opening a show with Nowhere Man or I Am the Walrus? I mean, really? So I guess, to wrap this up, again, I'm not saying it's illegal for Paul to do this. Is it unethical? I don't know. Yeah, we just want to have fun. We want to have a good time. But there is other food for thought with this, I think. So keep the comments coming. But listen to what I said. Don't just sit there and go, la, 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 la. I don't care. I just want to hear Paul do Help. I'm going to love it too when I see him, if I see him. But I think I made my points. Thank you, everybody.